Well, good evening and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, CL King, coming to you live from the high definition studios of Impacting Life 24/7. And we're blessed to have in our virtual studios a lady who has a story that's going to really impact you. And the way that story is going to impact you is it's going to touch your life because her story has touched my life. And I'm not going to do a very long introduction because I want to get right to it. And so if you guys would help me welcome to our virtual studios, Miss Amanda Faith. She has a tremendous story to share about her son, Luca, who at 13 years old succumbed to the vices of fentanyl. And so with that, I'm going to bring her on now. Hey, Miss.
Hello.
Hey, Miss Luca. I'm sorry, I said Luca. Hello, Amanda. How are you?
I normally go by Luca's mom. I am well. How about
yes,
yourself?
Luca's mom. Yes, and like I said, remember I'm the one pushing all the buttons. So I don't know if you heard the music or not, but I think it has to take you out for a second. So you were kind of like backstage. But anyway, we're so thankful to have you live with us on Impacting Life 24/7. And we have been trying to get this meeting together for some time now, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah.
Since mid-March or
yeah,
so.
about mid-March. And I would love to tell just for a brief moment. I'm going to tell the story after we hear a little bit from Amanda, how we kind of got connected. But Amanda, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a 42-year-old mother from Redding, California, who is a fentanyl poisoning awareness advocate after losing my 13-year-old child.
Yeah, and Amanda's story is so compelling that People Magazine picked up her story about, and they did a story about fentanyl overdoses and deaths. And the interesting thing, how Amanda and I kind of connected, was almost by I call it a God moment, but you guys may look at it a little different.
Kismet?
Say again?
Kismet?
Yeah. I was receiving the People Magazine in the mail, ladies and gentlemen, and it wasn't for me. It was actually to my address, so I didn't steal it. But it was not addressed to me because I hadn't ordered any People magazines. So I said, well, there's nobody on my street. I don't know anyone around here, so I'll just keep them since it came to my address. And the People magazine that stood out to me was one that I read because we had been working on getting our I Won't Try campaign up. And I saw this story about a lady and her son in the magazine. And it was a tremendous story that gripped my heart. I immediately identified with it. I told my staff about it. I told my staff about her. And I want you, Amanda, to tell us the story, if you would. I know we are very sensitive and mindful of that. This is still very, very fresh. It'll be fresh for you for the rest of your life. But if you would, just tell us the story of this beautiful young man named Luca and the road that he traveled down.
Well, that one has to start with Luca's heart.
Okay.
Because Luca was my hero. He was the human I wanted to be when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
He was magnanimous. There was just an energy about him. No one was unhappy with Luca in the room. And he cared very much for other people. He was very altruistic and kind. As a matter of fact, when he was 5 years old, he threw his first toy drive for other people because we were getting ready to move. And I told him, or I asked him rather, if we could have friends bring gift cards or cash for his birthday rather than gifts.
Right.
Because we were moving to Hawaii. And I said, as it is, we're going to have to give half of your toys to kids that don't have any. And he put his little hands on his hips and got such an attitude. And he says, why don't we get new toys for the kids that don't have any? And so I told him I would, and we made it happen. And, it became tradition. So This kid was just, he was just a beautiful, beautiful spirit. I mean, a week before he passed away, he nagged me about making spaghetti and going to feed the homeless because that was something we did very regularly. Um,
Mm.
and he needed that boost. I mean, living in service of others always made him feel good about himself, regardless of what bullying was going on or anything that was going on in his life. It was something that made him feel good because he had been bullied. He was overweight. There were different things that kids really really pick on. um, so in that, he had started to experiment with marijuana.
Mm.
um, and his father and I, we discovered it and immediately called each other. We lived in separate households. And we had a co-parenting meeting with Luca and, asked him, what it did for him, all these things. We got him into therapy, on medications. Um, and about a week before Luca died in August of 2020, he had a root canal, and he reached out to a dealer on Snapchat to get marijuana, saying that his mouth hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And the dealer offered him a Percocet, um, that turned out to be pure fentanyl. There was no Percocet in the press tablet at all. But
Wow.
Luca had taken a photo of the tablet and actually done an internet search. And according to detectives, to Luca, it seemed legit.
Mm.
Um, so Luca crunched it up on his table, and he took a video of himself snorting it.
Mm.
And in that video, you can see the millisecond that he died.
Oh, wow.
It was described to me. I can't watch it for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It was described in court because the dealer that sold to Luca on Snapchat was arrested and charged with first-degree murder after an 11-month investigation.
Mm.
Um, he is the first person in Shasta County to be charged for homicide in any drug-related case. And Luca's was the first ever investigated as a homicide from day one.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are tuning in or listening to our podcast, our international podcast, I am joined in the virtual studios via phone. We tried Zoom, but Murphy got involved, so we said, look, we're going to use plain old telephone service. And I'm joined in the virtual studios by Amanda Faith. You guys can look on my page, look on my Facebook Live, and you can see her beautiful son, Luca Manuel. And we're talking about kind of the story that happened with Luca. Now, there's a couple layers to this that I want us to understand, okay? Because all of the things that Luca went through are campaigns and issues that we here at Impacting Life 24/7 LLC have tackled. The first one is bullying. Now, he was experiencing bullying in school as it was recent, right? It was shortly before his use of marijuana, or did that precipitate it, or what?
I definitely think that it added to it.
Mm-hmm.
Luca had, when we had lived in Hawaii, we lived in a predominantly Filipino area, so
Mm-hmm.
he had been bullied for being white.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we moved back, he was bullied for being overweight. So I mean, it was an ongoing thing that we had done everything we could
Right.
to try to alleviate, but it wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. And again, when we talk about bullying, we have a campaign here in North Carolina, Bully Free in NC. And here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to be very candid that we cannot put our head in the sand and we cannot become like ostriches and assume that these things do not affect our kids. Now we can talk about, being tough and suck it up, etc. But these kids have their own generational issues to deal with. And
Absolutely.
bullying is still a very real. Listen, when somebody makes a comment on my show that says your show's terrible, it affects me. Even though I am the even though I am the impact motivator known all across the globe, it's still when I get one comment, it still impacts me negatively. And so
And
when
that's why
mhm,
I think kids actually have it worse than we did as
yes,
kids. I know for a fact because not only are they bullied in person when they're at school, they get no reprieve from it
right.
because they have their electronics and they have all of these platforms where, humans just have a tendency to be cruel.
Yeah.
And that's what got me into advocacy. It wasn't losing Luca. I knew that sharing Luca's story would be very, very important because I had worked with at risk youth for over a decade
Hmm.
and I didn't know fentanyl was in the illicit drug supply.
Mm,
And that's a really big deal. If I didn't know, then how many other people didn't know? Because I'm a pretty informed person.
right.
And so I couldn't wait to tell Luca's story. Um, 5 months after Luca died, three young men died directly across the street from my driveway.
What?
And yeah, they had gotten together. It was right when the pandemic was starting to ease up a little bit, you know, um, and they had gotten together thinking they were going to party with cocaine. Um, and all three died from fentanyl poisoning.
Oh my.
Yeah.
What was it? What
Um,
was it? What was it assumed the drug was?
they thought that they were taking cocaine. They thought that they were doing lines of coke, just going to party together and, have a good time. As far as I know, they weren't regular drug users, but I mean, fentanyl doesn't really care, does
Right.
it? So, the bullying, I went on to the news article, about these three young men. I was going to offer my condolences to their families because I knew firsthand how painful it was to lose a loved one to fentanyl poisoning.
Right.
And the comments from the people in my community, I couldn't believe I lived and worked and shopped with these people. There were comments like, one less druggie in the world. You play, you pay, and probably 1,000. Don't people know drugs are dangerous?
Oh my.
Um, and so I earned my first Facebook ban. But
You didn't stay
but see,
silent.
no,
Right.
no, I couldn't. I
Right.
couldn't. But then, I've been a behavioral therapist for a number of years, so I had to sit with why I was triggered.
Okay.
And I was triggered not only because of the bullying that happens on the internet, but I was triggered because I realized that the stigma of drug related death and fentanyl poisoning awareness do not mesh. They absolutely do not. The stigma, as an awareness advocate, the stigma is my worst enemy
Ah.
because people do think along those lines. Those first lines I heard, that's why I became an advocate.
Yeah.
I would have advocated somehow for awareness,
Right.
but not on such a large scale. So I started, faces or the faces of accidental fentanyl poisoning on Facebook, and I started collecting photos
Uh,
because I shared Luca's story in private groups. I couldn't share yet because of the investigation publicly.
right.
Um, so I started sharing his story in private groups, and it was like a different sort of Me Too movement.
Hmm.
So many parents, and these were just grieving parent groups. And so many parents were saying, yeah, my son forever 23, forever 16, forever. And these pictures just, I have over 4,000 pictures of kids in my phone.
4,000.
Oh yeah, you know how much storage I've had to pay for? But
Yeah.
so I started compiling the pictures and making these slideshow videos, just rapid change, because it's you're like, wow, all of these people, yeah, all of these people did die. Um, and I started, as soon as I could, I started sharing Luca's story with anyone who would listen.
Right.
We had Thomson Reuters, we had the Daily Caller, we had, you name it, you name it.
Right.
And then an American journalist got a hold of me to do a story for a Swedish broadcast. And I said, yeah, okay. I legally wasn't even supposed to share Luca's story yet, but this was going to be in Sweden, so it didn't matter, you
Yeah.
know? So I talked to this journalist extensively, extensively. And, we do the story and everything. And she gets back a hold of me because I had pitched a Faces of Fentanyl Poisoning story.
Hmm.
Because the more faces we show, the more impact, all of that. She gets back a hold of me and says, yeah, let's do it. And so I started giving her parents' names and all of this. And then the editor was going to do one just on Luca. And whatever, editors switched. And then the Faces of Fentanyl Poisoning came out in People magazine.
Now,
So,
now here's the deal. And ladies and gentlemen, those of you tuning in live, I'm joined in our virtual studios by Miss Amanda Faith, and it took us several months. It actually took us until now, from earlier beginning of this year, March timeframe, to now, for us to be able to sit down and talk. But I knew how important this was. Number one, it's like I felt like, man, I want to join the campaign against fentanyl. I'm sitting here in my studios, just like I told Amanda in our pre-show, that my nephew Jordan Murray fell victim to an overdose, and that was July 21st, 2020. And I'll never forget the shock that I felt. And here's what we have to do. Here's what we have to remember. This is one reason why I am so thankful for people like you, Amanda, is because you could very well go into an isolated cave and you would be justified for doing so.
yeah.
You could very well seclude and sequester yourself from the rest of humanity because of the grief and anguish and hurt that you've gone through. But what just absolutely amazes me is the fortitude and the vulnerability mixed together in a person like you, Amanda, to come out and share this very, very delicate story, but it's so important. And we
Well,
go ahead.
I told you Luca was my hero. I try to think about what he would do,
Right.
and he always helped others. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I saw on your page some of the cool things that he did. He seemed like just an amazing young man. Like, just reading his story and looking through some of your posts, you can feel his spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, you can. Absolutely, absolutely magnanimous. Um, when he was born, I was diagnosed with cancer. So, I lived in a perpetual state of fear of dying and leaving my kids behind. So I raised them very fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
So while Luca was only 13 and very much had the decision making skills of a child, he was very, very mature and smart for his age. Um, I thought that he was too smart to try drugs, and I was wrong.
Right.
Um, and that's unfortunate, but that's exactly why I have to share his story. He made his life count, and did a fabulous job of it. but it's my job to make his death count.
That's powerful. Again, joined by Amanda Faith here, and you can everyone. I would love for you guys to share this story. You can connect with her. Watch. You can find her on Facebook. She's traveling right now all across the country, and so I was blessed to be able to catch her at one of her pit stops there up north. And so when we talk about the second layer that Amanda and I have discussed, this one is serious. Okay, because I think. Listen, Amanda, we share now literally everything, right? Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
We share.
Absolutely.
I take Charity to a fancy restaurant, and before I even put my fork in the food, I got to take a picture of it and share it with everybody, let everybody know what I'm about to eat. You know what I mean? Who in the world does that, right? But that has
I've been putting off posting food pictures just exactly for that reason.
You know what I'm saying, Amanda? So it's like this is where we are in our state. This is our social culture that we share literally everything. But
Oh, yeah.
one of the problems that Amanda and I have, and I'm going to let her elaborate on this, is these social media platforms that have this privacy piece that kids can use and parents can't see. It's called Snapchat. Give us your thoughts on that, Amanda.
Well, I I think that Snapchat is culpable in my son's death.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, because it's an encrypted app first off,
Right.
and they don't allow any parental monitoring. No, Luca shouldn't have had it on his phone. But how closely do parents out there monitor their children's phones every single day?
Right.
And how easy is it to delete an app and then re-add it later on in the day?
Right.
You're just deleting it from your screen. We all know that those tricks.
Right.
So, having an encrypted app for any child, is at this point, if hindsight is 2020,
Right.
he would have a phone that was just pay as you go with nothing but phone calls.
Right. Right.
You know.
Well, Amanda, I've talked about that in our techno turnoff night. We've done that several times here in North Carolina. We've challenged young people to turn off their technology. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting. Okay, everybody hear me now. I'm not suggesting that we go back to the caveman days of using a rock and chisel. But what I am saying is that, like she said, these encrypted apps, they are the breeding grounds for predators, drug dealers, molesters. They are the breeding grounds for those people. Would you agree, Amanda?
Absolutely. Snapchat is good for nothing but nefarious activity.
Right.
When it first came out, we thought it was for sending nude pictures. I know I did, didn't you?
I surely did.
Why do you need to have something that disappears?
Right.
Like, I remember when my husband first downloaded it, I was like, are you cheating on me?
Right.
And that's what it was. And I always saw it for what it was. And I never had it. But my son did.
Yeah. And so when Luca had his and then there's the third piece that really intrigues me is that the gentleman that sold Luca this what was supposed to be a pain pill.
Right.
And let me just tell you, everybody knows my story. My book is coming out here July 24th, Who Ate My Brownie? But there's a part that I've talked about, and I don't talk about it in the book, but I've talked about opioids, and I've talked about the power of them and how I was legally doctor prescribed on opioids for 7 years. And those 7 years are almost erased from my memory bank. It was a block of time that I can't remember. But I can tell you this. It was the first thing I thought about when I woke up was taking my pill. And it was the last thing it
Absolutely.
was the last thing I thought about at night was taking my pill. So it's a powerful pull. It's a powerful thing. And what Amanda said earlier was these comments from these insensitive human beings to say, well, one less junkie, one less druggie, one less whatever. We've got to be mindful that this is powerful, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to have some compassion and awareness.
Well, as I'm counseling parents a lot of the time, you know, you I've heard so many parents say, he had a car accident and broke his femur and they prescribed him
Right.
oxycodone, and then, he needed more and more, and then they cut him off.
Yes.
So he started getting it from dealers, and whoa, now he's a heroin addict.
Wow.
I mean, it happens all the time. It happens to my own mother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is another reason I was so surprised that Luca would ever risk it. I mean, then I thought the biggest risk was addiction.
Right.
And now I know the biggest risk is getting fentanyl and not ever waking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fentanyl does not care if someone is a first time user or an addict. It doesn't care if they're 13, it doesn't care if they're 30. You know, we have to be mindful and we have to be aware of how our country is really suffering right now.
Right. It's an underground, it's an underground epidemic. And one of the things that bothers me is that, we have all these things that we address. And I challenge even my local leaders, my city council and commissioners and board of ed and sheriff's department. I challenge them whenever I have them on this show to give me some indications of what we're going to do. See, here's the problem, Amanda. Sometimes we feel in leadership that not talking about it solves the problem.
Absolutely not. Right now, our biggest problem fighting fentanyl poisoning is the stigma. We absolutely need to be talking about it.
Right.
And we need to be talking about it in all of our communities, every demographic.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people in our Latino and African American communities won't talk about it because they're so prideful to admit that their loved one
Right.
died from drugs.
Right.
And that's because of the stigma, and that's because of the horrible comments, and that's because of people's judgments of them, their parenting.
Right. Right.
Everything, so nobody really talks about it. And that's been my mission since I started all of this, was to encourage other parents to become advocates.
Right.
I've been traveling around the country teaching parents how to advocate because I can't do it alone. None of us can.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And so when
we need each other, we have to start a movement.
Man, you must have. Did you watch my live today? Because you just said, tell me you watched my live today. You didn't watch my live today.
I did not watch your live today.
so that's how you, ladies and gentlemen, that's how you guys know this is a God thing, because you just said exactly what I said in my live today. I gave a speech on Independence Day should actually be called Interdependence Day. And what that means is I need you.
Absolutely.
We can't be so independent that we forget about the needs of our brothers and sisters. And when listen, Amanda, I'm a very busy man. Okay, I got enough on my plate. What I do occupies me every single moment. But when I saw your story, I said, I've got to do something. I got to do something to address and help address and add voice to this issue. We don't need to look on my screen, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that beautiful young man, Luca Manuel, Forever 13, September 2nd, 2006 to August 12th, 2020, murdered by fentanyl. And when we talk about the repercussions for delivering fentanyl, tell us about what happened to the person that dealt it to dear Luca.
Well, he was arrested 11 months later on July 7th, 2021. He had been found with over 900 pressed fentanyl pills, $30,000 in cash, and a bunch of other substances, from codeine syrups to cocaine to anything you can think of.
Wow.
Um, he was charged with first-degree murder. And after, going through all of the court process, he has been held for trial, which will start October 18th
Mm.
in Redding, California. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. That the wheels of justice are turning on this, especially in how we need justice for Luca. And I love what it says on the flyer here. You guys can see that. For those of you who are listening to our podcast, this will be the headlining picture, so you can see this amazingly beautiful life that was taken too soon. It says substance use disorder is a disease, not a moral failing. And that's where,
Absolutely.
listen, that's where we as a society have lacked grace, because we automatically lump things together. Like, oh man, it's, well, God's turned his back on you. You've let God down, or, you know what I mean? Why can't you parent your kid? Why aren't you looking after your child? Here's the deal. The human will and the human choice is very, very powerful. We can put all different types of roadblocks in place, but Amanda, we both know that the human choice and will is the most powerful thing on earth. And so
I answer all of those questions with Luca had autonomy
yes,
over his life.
yes,
There was no way I could be there every moment of every day,
right.
nor could any parent.
You're right.
And I was a fantastic mother, and it happened to me.
Right.
The first thing on the police report was that there were no drugs in the residence, and it didn't seem that he got it from his parents.
Yeah.
That they even have to write that tells us a little bit about our country.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, it's just assume. Let's just assume that it could be the parents' fault. And moms and dads, here's what we need to do. We need to take a pause, and we need to realize that, man, we're in summertime. Everything's going great. We're barbecuing today on the 4th of July. But when we get up and go back to work tomorrow, I need you guys to think about how you can speak into your child's life to say, don't even try it.
Absolutely.
I'm joining with Amanda. Go ahead, Amanda.
They need to be going to work tomorrow thinking, who is my child talking to while I'm not there right now?
Yes.
And they need to be going to bed tonight thinking, oh, I love my child so much. And they need to hold that child every day that they possibly can, and be ever grateful to have the role of parent.
Oh.
I'm not saying take everything away.
Right.
I'm not saying that your kids can't have social media. Right. I'm saying you have to be responsible, and you have to be a parent.
Yeah.
And just because you've allowed something to go this long doesn't mean it has to be status quo.
Right.
Because right now, fentanyl poisoning is becoming status quo. Everybody knows someone who has died from fentanyl poisoning, whether they admit it or not.
Right. And
it is an epidemic.
It is. And you know what really brought us together was how close it was to me. My brother, his son, who I used to babysit. I got his picture right here, ladies and gentlemen. It always stays on my screen. I used to babysit this boy, Jordan Murray, and just a shock. I had talked to, he died July 21st, 2020, and I had talked to him June 20th, 2020, and I invited him over for a barbecue. And it just never materialized. I talked to him. I sent him a text. I said, yo, man, let's get because he was having some struggles, right? And I said, yo, man, let's get together and have a barbecue. And I beat myself up because I dropped the thought, but I didn't follow through with it. And I just wonder sometimes if I could have helped. And if I could have had that barbecue, maybe things would have turned out different. I don't know, but I do know
We
this.
we all do that.
Hmm.
We all do that. Don't
Yeah.
do that to yourself, first off, because
Right.
you can't control that. But
Right.
right now, you can share his story,
Yeah.
you can share his memory, and encourage other people to share theirs.
Yeah.
Because the more we talk about it, the people like you and I that are successful in our own rights,
Yeah.
the more they see people that are real and open and honest and vulnerable,
Hmm.
the more comfortable they are for being vulnerable.
Right.
And as a country, that's what we need, not just fentanyl awareness.
Right.
Just, love thy neighbor.
Hello.
You know, I
Right.
mean, how about don't stand in judgment of people all the time and just hope for everybody to have the best? We
Yeah.
can all have the best. We're not taking away from someone else.
Right, man. See, ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined in the virtual studios via telephone, somewhere way up north near the North Pole. Our
Oh,
get,
I'm in Rhode Island right now. We may as well give a shout out. Whoop, whoop.
let's go Rhode Island. I don't listen. I don't even know what Rhode Island is known for. I just know it's a state.
There are beautiful clouds, and I'm looking at a water tower from a hotel. So
Yeah, there you go, man.
I haven't seen much yet either. I just landed and got in comfortable, and I'm calling you.
Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, Amanda has said something that really touched me, and I've got 7 children, and I have been really working on doing more of this, Jimmy. Even though they're old, even I got one last senior. I was sitting on my bed today, and he's going out to go fishing, and I told him, "Hey, man, come over here and give me a hug." You all right? You
Yep.
all right, Amanda? We can't be so busy. We can't be so active that we forget about we run past we run to the important and we forget the essential.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And when it all comes down to it, none of that stuff is important.
yeah.
You know, I spent my entire life working so hard. Um, and if I could take those moments back and spend them with Luca, hands down in a heartbeat.
Mm,
Hands down in a heartbeat. We have to remember what's important, and we are not going to be here forever. Our kids are our legacy.
they are.
And now I share Luca's legacy. So that means I can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
um,
We're commissioning you that you're on the clock. You cannot leave, and we refuse to let you go. So I told Amanda I'm going to let our staff know that in the fall as we start the new school year, we're launching a campaign. I'll send you the flyer, Amanda. I didn't send it. I thought I did. We're launching a campaign called "I Won't Try," and it's going to be on shirts and hats and televisions and billboards, and it was spawned and it was partially created because of the situation with my nephew Jordan Murray, but it also got solidified after reading Amanda's story in People magazine. I said, man, I cannot, that's the thing. We cannot just sit on the sidelines and say, well, somebody else will do it. Man, if we join forces, we are so much greater together than we are apart. So Amanda, I know that you got to go explore Rhode Island, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to I'm going to give you the floor. You're going to become the host for a minute. And I love for you to speak to moms and dads and kids out there. You know what to say. You know the heart. You know the spirit of the hour. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Amanda Faith, mother of the dear young man, Luca Manuel, who was taken by fentanyl. Amanda, the floor is yours.
okay. Well, guys, I would just say to wrap it up, really love your kids. Be honest and open with them. Don't try to sugarcoat anything. Let them know the dangers of fentanyl, because one use, just one time, can kill them. Um, and that is the most daunting thing that any parent could ever face. And kids, Luca did not want to die. he loved his life very much, and he was so loved, even when he didn't recognize it. So if you're having issues with substance use, pardon my language,
Mm-hmm.
talk to your parents, talk to your counselors, talk to any adult that you feel comfortable talking to, and get help, because you could inadvertently take your own life.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
I really appreciate your message. And even though you are hard to get up with sometimes, Amanda, we're going to stay connected. And when we launch our in full effort, when we launch our I Won't Try campaign, what we're basically saying is don't even try. Don't,
not even
because
once.
not even once. Don't, if we can get our young people to recognize, nah, I'm not even going to go that route, not one time. Like me, here's the deal. You don't ever have to worry about, if I turn 80, I'm going to jump out of a parachute, or if a big old monumental event, I'm going to jump out of a plane. I meant plane, not a parachute. I'm not going to jump out of a plane with a parachute on ever. I'm not going to try it ever. You understand, ladies and gentlemen? You will never see me doing that. And that mentality, though it may be trivial, it's true when we can get our kids to buy into, I'm not going to try it ever.
Yep.
And so, Amanda,
Well, I would jump out of a plane, and I'll tell you, boys and girls, that's a whole lot safer than trying a pill these days.
ooh, boy, man, that was powerful. Yeah, she's right. I'm a chicken. Amanda's not. And so, listen, Amanda, we thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is a connection that will not break. We'll be chiming in on what you got going on, and we're going to support you. We're going to have you back on when you get back settled, and we just feel like this is a long-lasting partnership and friendship. And so anything that we can do in terms of our platform, please don't hesitate to reach out. Consider Impacting Life 24/7 your new friends, okay?
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, Amanda, you take care, and it's been a great show. Haven't done a phone interview in a while, so it was really fun, and it sounded really good. So you did a great job.
Kicking it old school.
That's right. Kicking it old school. That's right. All the way from California, Amanda Faith with her beautiful son, Luca Manuel. Thank you so much, Amanda. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Thank you. Have a beautiful evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the story that I've been trying to get us to understand is very, very important. You hear the bravery and the vulnerability in Amanda's voice. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, I can't try it one time. And we've got to be loving. We've got to be engaged. We've got to be concerned. We've got to be permissive with these amazing human beings that God has granted us a few morsels of time to help influence. But they are all, as she said, autonomous. They all can make their own decisions in life. And no parent can supervise or monitor everything their children is doing. It's impossible. But we can spread the word for the next child that may be contemplating, maybe on the fence about using that diabolical app called Snapchat to make some connections that could potentially cost them their life. I say we can do better. We can get the word out. We can start a campaign. We can share the message. I'm going to talk to you principals and superintendents and sheriff's departments throughout the country that we can't be like, well, it's not a thing, so let's not discuss it. We ran into that when we were doing our bullying campaigns. You know, sometimes principals would say, well, we're not having a problem with bullying here, so we shouldn't discuss it. You know, prevention is an actual thing. And educating, you don't know what's going on in the labyrinth of secrecy in your schools and with your students. So if we can share a message like what Amanda's had, we can share Luca's story, we can share Jordan's story, then we can prevent even the attempt to try. I told my son Jeremiah, who's a baseball player, I said, Jeremiah, even the baseball moms at the baseball field who mean well, if you're aching and after pitching and you need an ibuprofen, do not take one from anybody. Your mom and dad will give you the medicine you need. Do not take one, because we just don't know now. And that's the danger of where we are. Back in the days, it could be experimental and it could be fine. But now, experimenting can cost you your life. Impacting Life 24/7. We're at the front of the line to try to help. So get ready, principals, superintendents, county leaders, sheriff's departments. We are on a mission this fall. It's called I Won't Try. It's not the just say no. It's saying I won't even try it. And the kid's going to come to, the drug dealer going to come to the kid and they're going to say, don't you even try. I believe it's going to be a great campaign. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Impacting Life 24/7. Please share this episode. Okay? It's very, very important. And we appreciate your time and your attention. God bless.